I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby, here with Clare Kilner, Director on House of the Dragon. Clare, you directed 3 episodes from season 1, but what was it about episode 9, The Green Council, that you considered to be your best work of the season?
I mean, that episode really spoke to me when I first read it. I loved the story. I loved the sort of calmness and quietness of the beginning and the explosive ending. I loved the fact that it was kind of about the shift of power and like a sort of coup, in that world. And I think, it was also the most challenging episode because shooting that dragon coming out from underneath the boards was a huge, interesting experience, to say the least. I'd never actually worked with so much CGI and so many different elements. And yeah, it was really challenging, and it was really fun. I watched sort of when the episodes came out, my friends did sort of like put on throw a party, and I saw everyone's reactions when that dragon came out, and it was just really exciting and fun to connect with the audience in that way, to really be able to entertain and shock and see the sort of laughter that also came from that. So yeah, it was a lot of fun to me.
You're bringing me back, because when I first watched the episode, I think I've seen it twice now. When I first watched it, I was so blown away. I went straight onto Twitter and just like followed what everyone else was saying, and then every meme under the sun was made from that moment, when the incredible Eve Best has that little moment before she flees off the Dragonstone. It was so great. And I'm just thinking, like, were you, you saw it with a whole bunch of people, but then what about afterwards? How did you feel about the way that the episode was received by fans and critics? Everyone really loved it.
Yeah, no, it was really interesting. I'm not big on Instagram, but I started sort of being drawn into Instagram. And I mean, what struck me the most was people all over the world were sending me messages. I mean, I got 10,000 followers overnight, and I just couldn't help but connect with them, because that's why I make films. My company is called You Are Not Alone Pictures. And, I really love to connect with an audience and to reach people across the globe. And also had so many women and young women from Brazil, from India, asking me about directing, and to be able to connect with those people. And because when I started directing as a young woman, there were very few female directors, so I feel like a responsibility, and it's quite fun and also joyful to like try and bring more women in far-flung countries, to sort of make them realize they can do it too.
Yeah, for sure. Like, it's interesting that on the television side of the industry, both in the UK and the US, women have really made so many strides compared to what they've done on the film side. And, you got like legendaries like Mimi Leder and Leslie Linker-Glatter. And then on your show, you've got yourself and Gita Patel, for example. It's really great to see. And I just find it fascinating, though, this is what I'm dying to know. Given that the 9th episode of Game of Thrones, every 9th episode was such a big spectacular, was there any acknowledgement amongst your creative team that this episode would be saddled to some extent with some of that high expectation?
Yes, I felt a big responsibility. I knew that episodes 9 are often, big sort of turning points of the season. And I was also aware, I don't know if this is true. I think I was the first woman to direct an episode 9. So I did feel a big responsibility for that. And I mean, it's been an interesting journey for me, because I started in film and I was trying to break into TV, and I couldn't break into TV and for years. And I finally got to make an episode of The Middle about 5 or 6 years ago. So it was quite a journey for me, going from directing an episode of The Middle to directing episode 9 of House of the Dragon within 5 years. And, to be able to sort of move across the genres and do tell different types of stories, from comedy to period pieces to sort of fantasy, was, it's a great feeling.
I can only imagine. I want to drill down. I love the whole episode, honestly, but we should really talk about the coronation and of the events that occur right after. It's so climactic, and I take it there would have been a number of complicated moving parts and technical elements to get right. Can you talk us through the main areas that you were focused on to really ensure that this sequence would come off beautifully?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is that the Dragon Pit is actually the size of a football pitch, but we didn't even have a studio the size of a football pitch. So we had to really start working in layers. So for example, when Rhaenys enters the Dragon Pit and looks towards the days, she can't actually see anything because there's a blue screen, because then we have to film the sequence on the days separately and then shrink it down so that the perspective is correct from, you know, when we're doing an over the shoulder of Rhaenys to what she sees. So, and vice versa for the people on the days looking back. We probably had about 400 extras for the whole sequence. So we have to do tiling. So for example, we like have, you know, 400 people running towards the doors, but that's not enough. So we do it in layers. Again, we shoot 400 people running towards the doors and another 400 people running towards the doors. And then we shrink those people down and put them, you know, in the scene. It was very interesting with Egon. Egon was initially meant to come in on a horse. And for some reason, to do with the studio or the time we had to shoot, we weren't able to do it on a horse. So I had to think, how are we going to make this big entrance? And I started watching, you know, military videos. And I came up with the idea of the swords. And I love sound in film and TV and the use of it. I think it's kind of sometimes underestimated what a huge part of the story that is. And so we had, you know, the sound of those swords as he went past. I was like really into that idea. But yet again, we had probably about 40 extras, and they weren't military people who were doing those swords, that sword movement. We had to train them up within a day. We got a brilliant expert in who kind of trained those guys. I don't think they knew what hit them because they were like literally doing again, and they were trained up so beautifully within, you know, a few hours. But then again, we had to sort of shoot that Aegon going through that sort of archway of swords 3 times to place it within that room. The journey from Rhaenys to the Dragon Pit was interesting because we shot that in Spain. So because we, you know, so we had these sort of alleyways in Spain leading up to the Dragon Pit. We probably had about 300 extras there. I loved, myself and Eve loved shooting those sequences. I don't know what it was, but just her being sort of separated from Arik and sort of being shoved along with the commoners was really interesting. And actually Eve herself loved it because all the extras were sort of didn't want to touch her, and she was like, come on, push me, shove me. You know, she really wanted to feel it. So we had, you know, that journey of getting to the Dragon Pit. And yes, and then we had to shoot everyone on the days. So, you know, there's Aegon being crowned. There's, you know, Fabian Cole being the kingmaker, taking the crown and laying it on his head. And what was so interesting to me was like all the reactions. You know, these actors we work with bring so much to the story that's, you know, not on the page as well. And when I, you know, looked over to see what Fia, who plays Helena, was doing, you know, when they are forced, like brothers and sisters, forced to sort of curtsy or acknowledge their awful sibling being crowned. You know, it really made me laugh. Their sort of half smiles, and then Aemond as well, you know. So all the family dynamics, you know, on that day as to what's happening, that's a story in itself. And I really love to dig deep inter-family situations. I'm really always fascinated by dysfunctional families, and I pretty much work on any script in any genre, whether it's sci-fi or period or comedy, when it's related to dysfunctional family drama. It's just a subject that fascinates me. So with all those actors, I really like to dig in to the history and the power dynamics of where everyone is at that point in time. Then we had obviously the dragon coming out from under the boards. So that involves a guy or a girl holding a kind of pole with a blue ball on it, but also these enormous wind machines that we have to cue for, you know, when the dragon bursts out and when he opens his mouth and is potentially when Malaise is maybe about to breathe fire. So we've got to cue these huge machines. Then also we have I wanted to bring this element of dust into it because I like the idea that no one could really see what was happening at the beginning. But of course, dust is all CGI. We don't have that. So all the actors have to react to this dust getting in their eyes, coughing, not being able to see. They've got to imagine all that. So what happens is I sort of go in my little black booth with a mic and sort of say, okay, and now, you know, the floor is trembling, something's going on, something's wrong, no one can work out why, and poof, the dragon bursts out, there's wood flying, dust, you can't see anything, you know, and I get a bit carried away, can't see anything, you're looking around, you know, and then we cue the wind machines, you know, and then even Rhaenys can't be there at the time because the eye line is so high up for where everyone's got to look at. So, you know, I just talk them through everything that's happening at that moment. And of course, we have to do it multiple times because there are so many people and then so many angles. So I was a little bit hoarse at the end of it.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's a real challenge, and I'm really lucky to work with a brilliant first AD, Nick Hextall-Smith, and a brilliant cinematographer, Alejandro Martinez, who are also working on these episodes in season 2 with me. But, you know, Nick really pushed us all to, you know, we got the storyboards, but we had to really, basically, we sort of did it in beats and layers, work out every single moment of every single shot within that sequence to work out the best order to shoot it in. So, you know, we weren't turning around, you know, facing the days, then facing the doors, etc. Then, of course, also we have a brilliant production designer, Jim Clay, who created the doors, which were enormous, you know, but they were also only a third of the size of the doors that would have been on the Dragon Pit. So there's a lot of imagination and an incredible amount of collaboration. And that is, you know, I mean, you don't really see, you know, I mean, you see the results of all that work, but all the work of people coming together and the actual days of shooting it is an incredible experience. And that's why I, you know, make TV and make movies, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's so complicated. And to me, I think you need such a competence as a director to be able to marshal all of those forces and all those different people and muster them up so that you know, you're yelling on a microphone and you probably you probably feel really stupid maybe sometimes, but it's
you have to get over that.
You have to get over that, right?
Yeah.
But you manage to pull it off, and it's so seamless. It really, really is. I'm curious about this though, Claire, because I really noticed, especially with episode 9, but with some of your other work, that you've got a real thoughtfulness to your eye for detail on intimate, emotional character moments. Even in the midst of a dragon coming through the floor, I'm still looking at the eyes of the greens on that stage or that platform, and of course, Rhaenys. So when you're witnessing really committed performances from actors, how do you tend to collaborate with them to provide guidance or guardrails without compromising the intensity of their raw emotion?
I mean, that's what I ask myself every day before I go into work. And I did do a lot of work at one point. I did a lot of workshops in terms of working with actors, because I really, you know, it's the mystery and it's the joy and it's the challenge, really. I love working with actors. I started off working in theatre as a stage manager and watched a lot of great directors at work. But when I first started directing, I felt I still didn't really know what I was doing. And I went to film school, but I didn't really get taught how to work with actors, because you really have to, like you say, give them a lot of freedom to bring their own vision to it, but also still tell the story and keep the show on course. I mean, a lot of that is just instinct and, you know, creating trust between yourself and the actor. And sometimes I feel the best way to do that is to talk about my personal experiences and be just as very open and transparent as possible, and never ever lie to an actor, because they smell it. Do you know what I mean? You don't tell them they're great when they're not, and you know, vice versa. But it's just about building trust. And also what I do is I really break down the script beforehand. So I do a lot of homework that's not about shot listing as well, that's looking at each character, looking at their character arc for the whole, you know, for the whole season, and also in the episodes that aren't mine. And then also looking, you know, thinking about their backstory and their relationship to everyone else. But then also I like to read a script and, for example, read a scene and think about 10 different ways it could go. So when I first started directing, I would think, oh, this is what I want the actor to do. And I came a cropper because, you know, an actor had a different idea, and then I'm a bit stuck, and you're in the moment, you've got no time, and you don't know how to handle it. But there's something about preparing for it to go 10 different ways that you leave, then you drop, and my scripts are like covered in notes, but then I drop all of that when I'm working with the actor. And, you know, and sometimes little moments that I'd thought of come back, and sometimes the actor comes up with some of those moments, you know. But I think that's the thing. And also for an actor to know that you've got lots of ideas, but you're also willing to drop all your ideas in favor of an honest moment that comes from them, because that is gold. An honest, truthful moment from them is what counts more than anything that I can say to them. So I've just got to try and create a space where that can flourish.
Yeah, you've got to try to facilitate that freedom and comfort, and you and the audience. We know, I mean, when something really soars, it's when the director and the actor have that connection, and it just I have no words for it. My final question is, I know you're working on season 2. Can you just do me a favor and just tell me everything, or are you?
Oh, sure. Okay, well.
So you've been in Spain, right? Shooting? Have you been?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm in Wales now. I'm in a strange hotel in Wales.
Oh, wow. So I know you can't give me details, but is the show just going, is it bigger and better than ever? I guess that's the question I have for you.
It is. Worlds are expanding. We're bringing people on. I'm not allowed to say
anything. There'll be a knock on your door in 5 seconds, and you'll be taken out by HBO. Okay. So we won't go any further.
Yeah. But no, the worlds are expanding. You know, we've established so many characters and their relationships, and now things will happen. Characters will fly. It's exciting. It's very exciting.
I am very, very excited. The fans are dying to see more. And on that note, though, we just have to be patient, and congratulations on some really beautiful work on season 1.
Thank you so much. It's been great talking to you.